Hello and welcome to the Tutul Dialogues. I am so very pleased and honored today to have Sri Vivek Patwardhan as our guest today. Uh, and most of you watching this might know Vivek Patwardhan really well, and it's difficult to describe such a prolific person, but let me attempt. So Vivek Patwardhan is from the MILS and started his career with Tata Power and worked with Asian Paints for many years and retired as the global head of HR there. He is known to be an expert on labor law and has great insight on conflict management. He's been a teacher and a professor, the TISCO chair of industrial relations at Tata Institute. He's an award winning blogger. He's written several books. He's a person interested in street photography, in sketching, in writing limericks, in interviewing people, and is often called as one of the experts and guest speakers in many of the large forums. With Vivek sir, I have had the privilege of meeting him in my early career with Asian Paints when I joined there, and I remember he gave us a test which we all had to answer. And so many years later, I have the privilege of working with him as we work on several social sector initiatives, notably one of them being Mashal, which is a program that we do for healthcare providers. But being with Vivek ji and following him on all the creative pursuits is a great opportunity. So we have many years of experience coming forth, and we will discover the life of Vivek Patwardhan as we go along. So let's start at the beginning. There was a point in time when you were young and you were a student, and I'm sure there would have been some interesting turning points in your life that was there before the start of your work. So tell us a little bit about what happened in your student life and how that shaped you.
Well, there actually was a turning point in my student life. I was a fairly good student in school, and I thought that my success will continue forever, which it didn't. So I kind of became very overconfident, and I wanted to do medicine, but overconfidence killed it. And I scored very poor marks in inter science. In our days, it was called inter science, and then you went for medicine. So it didn't take me too long to realize that the overconfidence had given me a big hit. Okay. Then started a period where I would say I developed an anti-Midas touch. So whatever I touched became mitti within no time. Okay. Midas touch is where he touches something, it becomes gold. Okay. So I had an anti-Midas touch. Nothing worked for me. Okay. And it was very painful. Somehow I think, I don't know why it happened, but I had secured admission for MSc with biochemistry. So I lost my admission to MSc with biochemistry, and that was my dream. I wanted to do PhD in biochemistry, but I lost the admission. So what to do? So only one option. I enrolled for law, and I came from Marathi medium school. So my English was very poor. You can write a science exam by knowing 7-8 verbs, okay, increases, decreases, those kind of verbs can see you through. Law was a very different experience. I could not understand anything there, okay, and some of the laws like constitutional law, etc., were outright boring for me. I mean, it was not my field. So I had enrolled at Government Law College, but most of the time I went to the sea and sat there looking at the sea. Okay, I didn't attend college for a long time, and the inevitable happened. I developed an aversion for law, and then I flunked in that exam. But fortunately, I got admission to Bombay Labour Institute, which is today called Maharashtra Institute of Labour Studies, which is a postgraduate course, or they offer postgraduate course in personnel management and labor welfare. So I got into a professional course. Interestingly, it had something to do with industrial relations. The title of my degree is Master of Labour Studies, and eventually I had to study labor laws, and I believe people started recognizing me as an expert in law. What a
Turn of events.
What a turn of events there, really. Yeah, so that is what happened.
What are some of the practices or habits that have helped you succeed? You've had a career of almost 50 years, and you're known to be an expert not just in law, but you have a point of view of things. I'm sure there are. They say that if you want to look at a person, look at his or her habits, and that will indicate how that person is. So, what are some of the practices and habits that you have followed to be where you are today?
I was a voracious reader right from beginning, right from my school days. But it was aimless reading. When I got into service, when I started working for Asian Paints, I kept reading, but at one point I realized that one has to read with a purpose. And the purpose is to either develop expertise in one small field or to find answer to your problem. Okay, so define the problem, find an answer. Now I realize that it has to be focused reading, and if it is focused reading, the learning stays with you. And over a period of time, I started recording it. So reading was one, writing was another. Okay, so whatever I read, I used to write, and much later in life, I read something about morning pages. So morning pages concept is that you must write 3 pages a day. Take your morning cup of tea, sit at the table, write 3 pages. The quantity is specified, not the quality. You can write anything that comes. Okay, now I have been writing that ever since 2006. So almost 16 years or so I have been writing regularly. The trick is that you can't write 3 pages without getting into reflective mode. I mean, you can write yesterday's events, you can write diary for 1 page, 1.5 page. You can say that, I did not like this, I got angry with this, or I was very happy with this. But you gradually start analyzing why it happened, why something made you happy or why something made you very angry, okay? And that reflection is the key. I mean, that starts helping you. I mean, nobody can change you, right? You can only change yourself, and it has to come from within. So I discovered that process by writing morning pages. So these were 2 things that helped me. One was reading, the other was writing. And writing also, regular writing helps you in many ways. One is it becomes more lucid. Whatever point you want to talk about or write about, it becomes more lucid. And you also, while writing, start understanding what facts and arguments are to the point and beyond the point. Okay, so you know what to exclude, what to write.
Do you ever go back and read morning pages of, say, 10 years ago, or you think of a period in your life, or have you saved all those morning pages?
I have not saved all, but there are, last 5 years should be available, and sometimes I go back and read. Sometimes I also wonder what will happen, if my children look at this, okay? My wife also doesn't look at it, although the diaries are kept available to all, okay? But she doesn't read, but by the time they read, I won't be here, okay? So it's okay.
I think it would be a real peek into how you think and process issues. So let's come to the work life. You worked with 3 organizations, but mainly with one organization, and we experience so much of our learning in the workplace. What were some of the incidents in the workplace that, and normally they happen early on because it sort of leaves an impression. Some of the incidents that have shaped your personality and some of your beliefs today.
Yeah. Let me begin with my work with Tata Power. I joined them as a trainee and worked there for about 1.5 years. And one day the managing director sent a message to me that I had to organize a film show on mental health. Okay, I organized 75 shows in various colonies of Tata Power, and in the office we used to show films like Shyness, The Feelings of Hostility, and so on and so forth. They were made by National Film Board of Canada, okay, with National Psychiatric Association of Canada. These are Canadian films, but beautiful films. These are about 20-minute films, and we used to screen them Uh, Two persons from Indian Institute of Mental Health, they used to come. One was a girl from TIS, the other was from Nirmala Niketan. I mean, they were well experienced. And they used to facilitate a discussion in the office exploring the power relationship between boss and junior. And the same films were shown in the colony with the families where they used to talk about the relationship in the family. Okay, so the facilitation was excellent, but the contexts were different. I used to think this is totally waste of time for me. ये क्या है? I mean, I have come here to handle labor management, and what is this? Okay. But I started learning quite a lot, and later on I realized that all those film shows, 75 done, okay, I mean, I had learnt everything which those girls used to say. They had impacted my mind, and my final conclusion was that no amount of education goes waste. I also felt that God prepares you for some eventuality in your life. Those very messages which those girls facilitators used to give to families came very handy when I handled crisis in my life. So I firmly believe that God prepares you. Just as He puts trouble in your life, He also prepares you to handle those troubles. You have to be sensitive. So that was one. Second was, when I joined Asian Paints, I realized that everybody was miles ahead of me. I mean, there were people from I am Ahmedabad, Bangalore, I am Kolkata, so on and so forth. And I had generally whiled away my time, okay, did nothing. So I realized I have to catch up, and the time was running short. Suddenly I realized that time was not there. So I started studying seriously, and I would study about 1.5 to 2 hours daily in the library, and that helped me. That helped me become a specialist. As I said, I focused mainly on law, but I focused on anything that came in the way also. So
there are dilemmas and difficult moments, and they say that you learn a lot from the difficult moments. Any
yeah.
difficult moments that you faced as a young welfare officer or a young manager that stay with you?
As a young manager, I mean, I got into a very funny situation. Okay, I had joined Asian Paints and 3 months had passed. I was still fresh that way, and I was hardly a 24-year-old boy at that time. So I was in a meeting with my director when the union guys entered the room. Okay, I mean, they were friendly chats. Okay, union guys are not always antagonistic, and in fact they had respect for the director, so they were having a nice good chat, friendly chat. But one worker, on his way out in the sense they were leaving his room, he said, कैंटीन की तरफ कोई ध्यान नहीं देता है, गीजर 3 महीने से बंद पड़ा है. Okay, now I suddenly realized that my goose is cooked. The director is going to fire me now, okay, because canteen was supposed to be welfare officer's area of work, and I was welfare officer, okay. So I was waiting to be hit now by the chief. He did not fire me, and that was surprise. He took a deep breath and he told me that, look here Patwardhan, don't think I am the one who is appraising your performance. Even the sweeper appraises your performance. He decides whether you are a good manager or a bad manager. That is his way of appraising you. So be aware that everybody is appraising everybody. Now suddenly I realized that I was on a stage. And we are on a stage at all times. So at this juncture, Sujata, you are appraising me and I am also appraising you.
Yes.
Okay. We are evaluating each other. We have to be very conscious. And this realization, I think, made me more authentic. Because the only way is being authentic. There is no other way. Okay. You might make mistakes, say you made mistakes. I goofed up. Okay. And be honest, be authentic. It is not I was a finished product at 24 years of age, but these incidents, they gradually chisel out wrong things out of your personality. And over a period of time, you learn to be far more authentic. But the event stays on the mind. And there is one more incident which I would like to talk about. Uh, I was recruiting workers, and I recruited a person who was albino. Albino means he has no pigment under his skin and looks totally white. Okay. Now I am a doctor's son, and I know that an albino is having no issue, no problem. Okay. It's just that his skin color is not there. Otherwise, he is a normal human being. But when he was sent to packing floor, some of the workers there said that पांढऱ्या पायाचा है. What it means is that he has white feet. Okay, literal translation. पांढऱ्या पायाचा means somebody who will bring bad luck to you.
Really? Okay.
So that's the superstition. Okay. So some workers refused to work with him. Some of them felt he was a leprosy patient. Okay. Now all these have no foundation in medicine. Okay, but they are superstitions. What can you do about that? So one worker came and told me that, sir, don't employ this man. Okay, he should not be there tomorrow. I said, why? He is a normal fellow and I am not going to remove him. Okay. But there was some kind of you can't call it unrest, but people were uncomfortable. Then the production manager came to me and he said, you better remove this man. I said, why? I am not going to remove. But I was a young fellow, barely 24 years old, and he was a big man. He fired me left, right and center. He said that you keep your principles at home. If the production stops here, will you be responsible? So I didn't know what to do. So at the shift end, I called that fellow and I said, young man, don't come from tomorrow. So he sat in front of me and he said, sir, माझं काय चुकलं? What wrong did I do? Okay. I could not answer that question, but for next 2 nights I tossed in the bed because I knew I had done something terribly wrong and something which in the heart of my hearts I felt was being very unjust, unfair, and I didn't know how to handle it. I also felt I was not assertive enough. Okay. That kind of night I decided that I will speak my mind. I was always speaking my mind, but a young man can be bullied easily. Okay, so I got bullied. And on that day I decided that no matter who is in front of me, but I will always speak my mind. Okay. So then there were some instances, don't have to go into those details, when I spoke my mind even to the senior most people in the company without hesitation. Okay. One of them told me that I do not agree with you, but I always listen to you because you speak your mind, you don't speak what I would like to hear. And I thought that was the best compliment I had ever got. Okay. But I feel that this incident of albino made me stronger to assert myself. Of course, as a young boy, you are more antagonistic and you think that candor is speaking the other side of the story or putting across your point almost in a confrontational style. Over a period of time, I realized that one has to travel from confrontational candor to more persuasive assertiveness. So that's a long journey. Okay. I hope I made some progress towards it.
Now, you have a reputation of speaking your mind. Does that make people think twice before asking you your opinion? Because I know you will give it to them absolutely in black and white.
It's possible that it happens. I don't know. Perhaps you can ask my wife.
Well, that's a different story. I think you use a lot of storytelling to prove your point. So the story is so interesting and engaging that the message is also given and the story is also there. So a career. So let's move from the welfare and the labor to the fact that you were working with a lot of senior leaders and managers, not just in your organization, but also you've seen so many leaders and managers, and I know for a fact that many of them reach out to you for mentoring advice. You're like a magnet, everyone reaches out to you. In fact, I think that maximum number of people have quit their jobs to do new things, including me, after talking to you. Now, as you look at lives and careers of leaders and managers, what are some of the insights of what one can do and one should not do? Because you would have seen the pattern repeated so many times. What are some of your thoughts there?
That's a very interesting question. I think I have 2 points to tell you. First and foremost, you see, I studied botany. So I used to jokingly tell our factory managers that your plants don't interest me. These plants in your garden, they interest me more. Okay. And the plants in the garden are such that they have a natural habitat. Okay. So a coconut tree you can plant in Himalayas, but it won't give you yield. It will survive, but it won't give you any yield. Not the kind of yield it will give in Mumbai. Okay. And Christmas tree you can plant in Mumbai from Himalayas, but it won't blossom as it should. Okay. I mean, every plant has a natural habitat. I feel on a similar theme, you need to find an organization where your personality will blossom. So you need to find your natural habitat. Okay. I found that in a company and I stuck there. Okay, not worrying about other considerations, but I stayed there because I felt I was growing. And as long as I felt I was growing, when I say growth, I am talking about growing as a person, growing as a professional, all those aspects. Okay. So that is something I valued far more than my salary. Okay. So I feel that is something people have to focus on if they are really interested in growing as a leader or growing as a person. The second rule, which I did not follow, I must confess, but I did advise others, and that rule is, I think every product, every service has a shelf life.
Okay.
Okay, now you have about 40 years career, you are in a company, you have to understand at what stage, okay, you are no longer as useful as you were to that company, okay, or there is no value addition hereafter you are going to make. You have reached a certain comfort zone, and perhaps the company or organization has also reached a certain comfort with you, but you have stopped growing as a professional. The challenge is not there in the job, and I think that is the time to recognize quickly that you need to go somewhere else, march on, because there has to be challenge in your life, and it comes with a little bit of insecurity. Okay. And that does you something good. So Sujata, I want to ask you, why in your opinion people fail to achieve their potential?
If I look at potential, my understanding is that you go to any city in the world, you go to any lane in the world, it is full of people who have so much of art or ability to do sports or ability to create things. There is a huge amount of unused potential. Of all the organizations that we have assessed people, we've always found spare potential. It's just that the potential does not get channelized. So that's the first point I'd like to say. The second point is that some people get where they have to be because they're also at the right place at the right time, and let's not take that away. I know the case of a person who's very senior today in industry who was in an organization, and for some reason his manager, his senior most manager, had an issue and was asked to leave. And at that time they found him to be very steady and quiet and exactly the kind of person who would anchor the department. And he got a chance to actually grow, and today he's one of the highest levels. And he always says that if I wasn't there at that time, I may or may not have got this chance, but when I got it, I took it. Now, what is it that happens to people who have potential who don't really realize it or don't get a chance to express it? There are two, three things I have seen. Number one is that many of us have what we call as identity, how I see myself, and reputation is how the world sees you. Now, it's not possible that the way I see myself is exactly what the world sees me. But when the gap between how I view myself and the world views me is too much, then we are operating on parallel tracks. So my behavior does not therefore get aligned to what is expected around me. So that's number one. So self-awareness, of course, plays a key role. The other thing that I found are that there are certain character traits or personality traits that become derailers wherever you go. So there could be somebody who gets extremely suspicious or somebody who gets extremely argumentative. When I was young, I saw a movie called Satyakam, a classic movie. It's a black and white, if I'm not mistaken, or if I remember correctly, it has Dharmendra playing the role. And Satyakam is a very idealistic and honest person who has a problem in every job he goes in because his way of battling against the system is such that he gets thrown out. In one scene, Sharmila Tagore, who's the actress opposite him, says, "ये कहीं टिक नहीं सकते." He is never able to stay in one place. So personality traits can get the better of you and offset your talent. There's a very interesting model which was created by someone called Shreyas in the US, who says that you have something on the x-axis, you have something called agency, which is your ability to get things done and figure it out as you go along. And on the other hand, you have talent, which is your capability and skills. So people with high agency and high talent are game changers, and we know of them because we read about them. Then there are people who have very high talent but don't have agency, and he calls them frustrated geniuses. And then there are those people who are always trying new things, entrepreneurs, always trying some new idea, very very high agency, कुछ करना है, लेकिन channelize नहीं कर पाते क्योंकि talent नहीं है. So little while ago you talked about natural habitat. If you find the place you need to be, where your talents can get expressed and you bring agency and willingness to try new things and not look foolish if you fail, then there's a greater chance that your potential will get leveraged and expressed. And I can tell you that if anybody went around trying to get people to achieve their potential, there is so much to work on. I'm constantly amazed at the people I work with. I say that they know so much more than me. Many of the clients are so talented. It's just being in the right place in the right time, ensuring that I have a correct view of myself, the ability to not let my career, my character or my personality flaws deflect me, and lastly, demonstrating high agency. I think these are some of the things that help people express potential.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. What I am reminded of is the latest book of Adam Grant on hidden potential, and he talks about four things. He says that potential is the distance you have traveled in a way.
That's right.
Okay, and he says four aspects are important for that. One is you have to be proactive. Okay. Now I felt I was never proactive, at least till the age of 45 or 50 in my opinion. Then one day I realized that I have only 10 or 15 years to go before retirement, and I realized that I didn't want to retire without leaving small mark on my job. Okay, I mean that is the wish of everybody. I know that mark is like the footprint on sand dune of time. Okay, it will get washed away, but at least some mark. Okay, so I suddenly woke up, and that led to my being proactive is what I feel. Second thing which he talks about is being pro-social, which means you should be able to relate to people. That is what you also talked about, the relationship with people matter. Third thing he talked about is being disciplined. Okay, and I think some author has talked about 10,000 hours of work. Okay, and determination is last. Okay, so he says that these are 4 things that see you through. So there are people who have practiced quite a lot, 10,000 hours, and have become great people. Okay, they may not have got recognized like that at their young age, but practice makes a perfect person. So that way, that determination and discipline comes into picture. So many of us get carried away by the first success, and we think that we have arrived on the scene, whereas that is not right.
It's a long game.
It's a long game.
It's a
Right,
long
right.
game. I read somewhere there was a twist on the 10,000 hours to saying 10,000 iterations.
Yeah.
So it's like, let's say I cut a fruit for somebody as a fruit vendor, or I set up a mic for somebody, and I do it 10,000 times. Every time I'm trying to do it better. So 10,000 iterations takes it to another level. And one of the things I find in successful people is that they have childlike curiosity and always wanting to learn, and always not saying, oh, I've been there, done that. So one of the things I am extremely afraid of is of becoming mediocre and of doing what I did in the past, because I've seen how you meet a new audience, you do what you did in the past, everybody is very excited, but in your heart of heart, I'm still doing the same thing that I did elsewhere.
Yes,
So I guess how fast you run and how much
I
you
would
work.
like to share one experience.
Yes, please.
Okay, somebody who was present when I was doing sketching. Okay, I was making a sketch of a person standing with a hat in his hand. Okay, so as I was finishing that sketch, he said, I want to give you an exercise, and he turned the reference picture upside down. That is to say, his feet were up and his head and hat was down, and he said, now copy this. Now you can't copy that unless your right brain starts working.
Because it doesn't make sense to the left brain.
It just doesn't make sense, and you have to really concentrate heavily on what you are doing, and it woke me up completely. Okay, I realized that one simple trick of turning the picture upside down and sketching it had so much impact. Okay, it shakes your inertia and it shakes your confidence also, and it shakes your overconfidence.
Very interesting. I read somewhere that when we are trying to figure out, does this person look like this person, sometimes you're trying to see familial resemblance. So they say you actually supposed to turn the picture upside down, because then your brain doesn't recognize the face. Then you're noticing the ear and the nose and the.
Yes.
So an alternate view of looking at things makes you look at it differently. Today somebody on LinkedIn has written that all year ending themes are about what is going to change in 2024, what's going to be there. And he says, why are we not talking about what will not change?
Yeah.
And I thought that was such an interesting point. This gentleman is a batchmate of mine called Amit Garg, and he wrote a lovely point. He said, let's look at what will remain in learning and development, not necessarily what will change, because what remains endures, and that's why we need to work so much harder at it. So alternate perspectives of life. Okay, so we'll move to the next question. One of the mantras you always give is the learn, earn and return, and it's easy to remember, and I think you speak about it a lot. You've lived that as well. Do tell us a little bit about learn, earn and return.
Frankly, this is not my original thought. I read it in somewhere, in some book or newspaper. I don't know where I read it, but I read it somewhere. Okay, and while addressing a class of MBA students, okay, I mentioned it to them that you need to divide your career in 3 phases. You graduate and take up a job around when you are about 24. Next 10 years, 24 to 34, invest in learning. It is not as if you have to do only learning and not earning. I mean, the emphasis is on learning. Okay. By the time you are 34, you are already married, perhaps have a family. Okay, so the interest of your children are put before your interest, and in any case the way you earn, okay, is the way you are going to provide good happy life to your family. So you must earn. There is nothing wrong about earning. Indians and particularly people of my generation, they say that don't focus on money. I'm not talking about focusing on money. I'm saying that you must earn good amount of money so that you can provide good life. That is your responsibility to your family. So next 10 years on earning. And when you are about 45, 48, focus the remaining period on returning. Now returning is returning to the society, returning to the family. Focus is on leaving behind a legacy. Okay. And when we talk about leaving behind a legacy, we are essentially talking about how to be successful in life. I have understood some mantras. Can I teach that to my children? Can I teach that to my nephews and nieces? Okay. Leaving behind legacy, it can be done in many ways. You can write books, you can give them lectures, okay. I mean, it can be done, or you can be simply be a role model.
Exactly.
But there are many ways. You choose your way, okay, and it happens also in many ways. More than that, you must also do something for the society in many ways. I mean, you can be a Rotary Club member, you can do something with NGO. There are many ways. You choose your way. But giving back to the society or giving back to the organization where you have worked has to be the focus. It can't be your own focus, how I want to be great at the end of my career. That is not the focus. So, learn, earn and return are the three phases of your career if you can manage it that way. So, thanks to anybody who actually invented this concept, but I have capitalized on it.
You've lived it. One of the things that I think people admire, or rather I admire most about you, is the second career concept. I remember you wrote a fantastic speech or a blog on it. I don't know of anybody who's had such a rich, exciting life. I think you have more rich, exciting life than many of us who are working in your second career. So we're talking about blogging, we're talking about writing books, we're talking about sketching. I think you do street photography, working with NGOs, consulting organizations. But I think this entire thing about saying that life can be very interesting at any stage in life and second career. So there may be a lot of people watching Tutul Dialogues who are at 53, 54, 58, 60 saying, now what? Earlier you had, you said you would go on pilgrimages and then life expectancy was less, but today life expectancy is more. So talk to us about second career. How did you come up with this second career and how has your life played out?
Yes, many people actually tell me that, I mean, you have changed. What made you sketch something, or what made you do photography and this and that, okay? You have started writing and we never saw this in you, okay? So I always tell them that very often HR managers say that people don't change, okay? I have not changed. It's only that you never saw that in me. So I tell them that I always had interest in all these aspects. It's just that I have an opportunity after retirement. So before I retired, some 2 years before my retirement, a colleague of mine came and said, you must start blogging. So I said, Kis Tedia ka naam hai? So he then explained what blogging was. And I took to blogging like duck takes to water. So, I enjoyed. Suddenly I started enjoying blogging, and blogging is self-publishing. So, you don't have to wait for somebody else to publish your material. You are publishing your own material. And there is so much you can do once. Then I started my blog. Then I started HR blog. Then I started a photo blog. Then I was writing limericks, which was another blog. Okay, then I started Marathi blog. I had 5 or 6 blogs running simultaneously. And as the days passed by, the mobiles got more and more evolved, and at a certain stage I realized that the cameras have become very powerful, so I started taking photographs. Actually, I was interested in photography much earlier. Then I started sketching. I used to sketch even as a student, not great sketches, but I used to do it, okay. So I kept on doing it more to have fun. Swanta Sukhaya, as they say in Sanskrit, which means for your own pleasure, okay. I even wrote poetry once. I mean, I dabbled in poetry, okay. but my nature is such that once I realize I can do it, that's the end of my interest.
As long as it challenges you, you will
Yeah.
keep trying to do it.
So poetry I have given up, blogging continues, photography continues. I discovered street photography and I am dabbling in it mainly because uh, it has to be done in an instant.
You find that moment and you do black and white a lot also.
Yeah, I mean nobody stops for you.
That's right.
On the street people don't stop for you, okay, so you have to do it in an instant. There is a challenge there, okay, so these things interest me quite a lot.
So we've talked about many C's. One is the curiosity that makes you want to interview this 103-year-old woman. Then there is creativity, which is poetry. Then there is C for camera. So let's come to the fourth key, which is perhaps one of the topics you are associated with as an expert, which is conflict management.
Yeah.
None of us like conflict. We all get stressed by it. We read a lot about it, but we don't do it effectively. You've looked at conflict very uniquely in not just management and union, but in general. So tell us 2 or 3 insights on conflict management that people watching this can apply it into their lives and how to deal with conflict.
So frankly, I don't think I'm the type who can handle conflicts, or I don't want to have conflicts in my life like anybody else. I mean, none of us want conflicts in our lives, right? We want to live a good life, conflict-free life. But life is not like that, okay? I always say that look at the spelling of life. It is L-I-F-E. There is an if in between the life, okay? So 50% of life is if, okay? So conflict, I was appointed as a TISCO chair professor by Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and Professor Datta, who was the Dean of HR then, he said that Vivek, why don't you start teaching a course? So I said, all right. Which course? He said conflict management. So I started teaching conflict management. In conflicts, I realized that the best way to handle conflict is to be truthful. If you have made a mistake, say I made a mistake, okay? Actually, you disarm a person when you are absolutely open.
Okay.
So I used to tell this to my students that if your boss says, "Ye tune kya mess up kiya?" so stand there and say, "Boss, mistake ho gaya." Okay, admit your mistake. Your boss won't be able to fire you thereafter. Okay, but I also told them that you can't use the trick too often. But the point is that be authentic, be straight from heart. Okay, this works in an interpersonal conflict certainly, but it also works in a union management conflict. I know of a certain senior person, okay, who was talking to union, and union had said that one of your manager had wrongfully sacked a person, okay, and the senior person investigated and he did come to the same conclusion that the sacking was out of what you might say bias or things like that. So he told the union, all right, I will reinstate the person. I don't need a court to tell me that I am in the wrong. Now this is a big statement for a senior person in an organization to make before a, actually the union started respecting him very highly, okay, because he could have allowed that entire thing to go to court, okay, and it would have dragged there for 10 years, but he didn't do that. So actually relationships improve if you are just truthful, but we come there with so many facades, so many masks, and we think we are our position, okay, so I am vice president, so I must behave like vice president, okay, or I am HR manager, I must behave like. We are not HR manager, we are not vice president, we hold the position of HR manager, we have to understand that we play a role and that is not our complete self. I will have to be Vivek Patwardhan all the time, but I will play a certain role. But it has to be played authentically as Vivek Patwardhan plays. Okay. Now, when we understand this, life becomes simple. Okay. So the trick lies in being authentic, being truthful, and being in the adult.
Can you explain that adult?
Adult in the sense you need to process the data and be as objective as possible, and keep on checking whether your conclusions are right or wrong, whether you have heard things right or wrong to the other person. Okay, so you make this statement, I say, I have heard you say this, have I heard you right? Okay, that way the discussion suddenly comes on a rational level. Problems can be solved if you are talking something rationally. Problems cannot be solved if you are talking something emotionally. Okay, the Sas Bahu conflict is outright an emotional conflict. I mean, at least the way it is projected on your TV series and all. Okay, the moment you start looking at it rationally, there are solutions possible. Okay, but we have to be solution oriented. Our entire society enjoys being emotional. The other thing which I have learned is that the corporate job requires you to evaluate things. Everything is to be evaluated. If you are applying for, let's say, a job in my company, I have to evaluate your candidature. Okay, but I don't have to be evaluative. And there is a big difference in being evaluative and to evaluate something. To evaluate something is being rational. When you are evaluative, you are judgmental.
It actually becomes subjective.
It's subjective, it is, you can be condescending, and usually we find more fault in others than than the strengths. Okay, and it hurts. It outright hurts. And the person sitting opposite you is sharp enough to understand that you are evaluative. Okay, that does not go to build relationship, it does not go to solve conflicts, it actually complicates the things, it leads to hardening of attitudes. So these are some of the things I have learned over a period of time.
So you've written many books, and we will talk about the latest book that you've published. But before that, there is a very interesting character in all your blogs called Lulu, and you recently published the Lulu duologues as well. Tell us a little bit of who is this Lulu and who is this Lulu as a parrot?
Yeah, there is a little bit of story behind it. So in Mundaka Upanishad, they say that your life is like a tree on which two birds sit. One is eating the bittersweet fruits of experience and the bird is unhappy. And the other bird is looking at that bird and making commentary.
I see.
Analyzing it. So it is like having your two minds. I mean, sometimes you experience something and later on, dispassionately you are able to look at that experience. Okay, something like that. So there is a Sahitya Academy award winning autobiography in Marathi written by eminent author called Vishram Bedekar, and the title is Ek Jhad Don Pakshi. So one tree, two birds. It is written, entire autobiography is written from the perspective of the second bird. Now just imagine what possibilities it can offer, to examine one's life. Okay. So that was always at the back of my mind. So I started talking to Lulu. So Lulu was a parrot I invented, okay, and I started recording my conversations with Lulu. There was another input there. I was an avid reader of Busy Bees columns.
Yes,
in good old days, Busy Bees columns were very popular, and Busy Bee would talk to his dog called Bolshoi. Okay, so that was another thing. So I created a parrot, and his name was Lulu, which incidentally rhymes with my wife's name Sulu. Okay, so that is what I created, and I started writing. It was light-hearted kind of commentary on various things, and it became quite popular. It became so popular that some people actually asked me, do you keep parrot as a pet? Okay, so I don't keep any pet, certainly not parrot, no pet actually. But people started enjoying it, And at one point of time, I realized that I had written 200 such blogs. Then somebody said, pick up some of those and make a book. So I picked up 70 blogs and made a book. Now, around that time, I stumbled upon the word duologue. So, a dialogue is a discussion between many persons, one to many. A duologue is only between two persons, like we are having a duologue at this moment.
Time to change the program name.
So, the title of the book was the Lulu Duologues. Okay, it became quite popular.
Yeah, and I think the Lulu says a few very pithy statements, and that one statement carries so much of meaning that I often think about your blog. So let's talk about your latest book. I think there's a Marathi book which is Shramikancha Anokhya Jagat, and the latest one is People at Work, which is just got published. Maybe you can just talk about People at Work a little bit.
This is my book, People at Work, and let me also show you this book. This is Shramikancha Anokhya Jagat. Okay, it means in the world of unknown world of the labor, okay, or the workers. So after my retirement, I started interacting with workers. I have seen from close quarters the lives of workers who are at the lowest rung of the pyramid, social pyramid, okay. And I realized that nobody is understanding their pain, okay. You meet trainees, and do you know trainees remain trainees for years together. For example, they do 1 year or 2 year trainee under Tata Motors, then they do another 2 years at Bosch, then they do another 2 years at Kinetic Engineering. I mean, they move from company to company as trainees before they finally land up a permanent job, and many of them still don't land up, they return to their villages. Then I also met a lot of people who were contract workers. Okay, they were contract workers on minimum wages in one particular public sector unit. I interviewed 4 ladies, okay, who were contract workers for 35 years, and 35 years they drew only minimum wage. What it means is their purchasing power never increased.
But prices kept going.
And prices keep going, but purchasing power actually goes down because the way minimum wages is calculated is not very scientific. So, you know, the ladies remained where they were in social hierarchy, and in fact even became poorer. They could not educate their children. Their husbands also could not take the frustration. They became drunkards. And in all this, what kind of lives people are living? You work for a public sector unit which is supposed to be a model employer, and you lead such life. Okay, I brought out all these aspects in my blogs. Then some of my experiences, it's not about me but my experiences combined made this, they were all my blogs in English, partly in Marathi. So I decided to publish, put them together and publish a book, which is this Shramikancha Anokhya Jagat, okay. And the same book with some changes is this People at Work, the untold story of labor management relations. There are a lot of things here which touch people. I mean, which I have seen deep pain at the lowest level, and moreover loss of hope. Interestingly, I met one fellow who had lost his job, and his wife donated kidney to him. True story, it's there in the book. His wife donated kidney to that fellow, okay. He had a monthly medical expenses of 12,500 rupees, because if you do kidney transplant, there are medications, okay. I met him, had a long chat with him for about 2-3 hours, and then I was going down. He came to escort me till my car, and we were deeply involved in a conversation in which he told me that, sir, let me tell you one thing, nobody dies of disease. Nobody dies of disease, he told me. He said people die when they lose hope. Now, who was telling me? Who was telling me? Somebody who had a kidney transplant, 12,500 rupees medical expenses, and had lost job. He is telling me that people die because they lose hopes. They don't die because of illness. Oh, I have had such experiences which have moved me. Okay, so they all find the place here. I feel that there are reasons why people have lost touch. One is everybody gets educated in English medium. Therefore, they read English books which are mostly American, and English books don't focus on the lowest strata of the society. If you want to read that, you have to read Marathi newspapers or vernacular, I would say, and the literature in vernacular. They typically focus on the pain and reality which is there at the bottom of the pyramid. So this is why I think people in the corporate world seem to have lost touch with this reality, and it is my effort to tell them that there is so much that can be done and needs to be done. Refocus.
So, what a conversation. I have no idea how time has gone by. I'll try and summarize. I'm not sure if I'll remember all the insights, but I think we started off by saying that there are moments which are very difficult, and you said you had the anti-Midas touch, and look at how life turns from one end of the spectrum to the other. Second, you said that you were not able to follow law because of your language issues, and today you are an expert in labor law and you write so extensively. You're a published author in 2 languages. You talked about natural habitat and finding that. You talked about how it is important to have courage to stand up and speak what you believe in. You talked about a very simple way of looking at conflict, which is be truthful, be authentic, and be rational. If you're emotional and the other person is rational, it will just escalate. You talked about having curiosity and saying that those things were always within me, and as long as it challenged me, things went by. You talked about a practice of, I think, 16 or 17 years of morning pages, how that enables you to reflect on life. And I think it would be very fascinating for us to read your morning pages at some point, and maybe that can be the next book. What I found very emotional and touching is the way that you have been able to listen to the stories. And I know that you would take your camera and you would actually record interviews of people and their experiences and try and write about them. There are so many dimensions to the personality, and there is, I think, continuous curiosity. But I think the learn, earn, return is something that you role model. I mean, you may jokingly say that I give lectures, but you actually live that. And I think that explains why wherever you are, people somehow find a way of reaching you to ask you to mentor them on certain things. You've certainly been a great mentor. I mean, I feel so happy when people say, oh, you work with Patwardhan sir. And I can't thank you enough for being on the Tutul Dialogues and sharing your wisdom. Love the stories and hope you'll come back again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.